At the start of the year, it was my belief that normal types would dominate over all other typings in Pokemon Crystal. This channel is all about testing rather than blind assertions, so I made it my goal in 2024 to collect extensive data on the normal types. So far, my theory holds true. The top 4 slots in my tier list are all normal type Pokemon. Furret, 1 hour 8 minutes and 38 seconds, Granbull, 1 hour 9 minutes and 33 seconds, Clefable, 1 hour 10 minutes and 9 seconds, and Ursaring, 1 hour 10 minutes and 31 seconds. There is a big gap between my 4th place slot and Feraligator's time of 1:14:39. That means so far the normal types are really differentiating themselves from all other Pokemon, even legendaries like Lugia. But I can't do normal type playthroughs in October. This entire month is themed around Halloween because my wife loves this holiday so much. So I needed to pick between dark types, ghost types, poison types, or bug types to run. And I decided on using my favorite. Let's see how the bug types do. They're quite frankly awful in solo runs of Generation 1, but Generation 2 is quite different. Believe me when I say I could not have anticipated what happened with these bug type runs. Yeah, you're gonna have to watch all the videos to find out. Anyways, back to this one. Today I'm putting Pinsir and Heracross horn to horn to determine which one is better for a solo run of Pokemon Crystal. These are the rules. A more detailed copy can be found in the description if you want to reference them later. When I first decided to do these runs, I was really excited because a long time ago I played Heracross in Pokemon Gold, and it did not go well. I had a really bad time, but I've learned a lot since then, and there are some really unique and interesting strategies that it can use that many other Pokemon can't, and I'm excited to put those into play today. I also decided that I wanted to show off a little bit of my behind-the-scenes process with Versus videos to all of you that support me here. So I decided to play both Heracross and Pinsir live on stream. It was my intention to do all their follow-up playthroughs also live, but then I did a couple of them offline and decided to not move forward with that so that I could keep the results of this video a surprise. I think at the end, all of this is going to make sense. The first thing you should know about these runs is that I didn't play them in the order that I typically do with my Versus videos. I try to play the Pokemon I think is going to be favored first, and then the Pokemon I think will have a disadvantage second. But I did them in reverse order in this case. Honestly, I don't really have a good reason for it. I played Heracross first. I overall think it is going to be not as favored for some reasons that we'll see in just a second. One of the first things that's a disadvantage for it is that it's a slow growth rate. The worst growth rate for solo challenges. Non-legendary Pokemon that have this growth rate are just set so far behind everything else simply because they level up more slowly. That said, Heracross does have some fantastic stats. 80 HP, 125 attack, 75 defense, 85 speed, 40 special attack, which is perfect because it's not going to be using special moves, and 95 special defense. Because I'm not a competitive Pokemon player, I thought that Heracross's speed might hold it back in that format. I checked it on Smogon and found that in Gold and Silver, it's actually in the OU tier, which was a bit surprising to me. Oh, its moveset is Rest, Sleep Talk, Mega Horn, and Curse, or maybe Seismic Toss. It also holds the leftovers. Yeah, Generation 2 is really about stalling. But I have some news for all of you. I don't think I'm going to be using the typical Rest, Curse, Sleep Talk, Return strategy against Red today in this video. I think both Pinsir and Heracross have other options which are going to allow them to get by the final threat. The first of these solutions is in Heracross's Level Up Learn set. Now it starts with Tackle and Leer, and then at level 6 it learns Horn Attack, which is a fantastic move for the early game. Base 65 power and 100% accuracy. Plus it has 25 PP, and whenever I can have a bigger PP, I'm always happy. Beyond that, it gets 2 moves which are going to be very key, and I'm going to talk about them later. Through TM and HM, it gets some coverage, the normal moves as well as Earthquake and Fury Cutter, but honestly, not very much. I can see Hidden Power being pivotal in my second playthrough, but for the first playthrough, it's banned just so these videos are a little bit more interesting. I nicknamed my Heracross Harry, which is the perfect name for a Heracross. In this video, the rival is going to be picking Cyndaquil because it's super effective against the bug type, although I should mention that the Cyndaquil rival team is not particularly good. By the time I reach Radio Tower, it will not have evolved into a Typhlosion, so there's only one battle that I have against its final form, and it's really not that good because I'll have Earthquake by that point. I come very close to having to reset the game because I almost nicknamed the rival but we all know that his name is actually triple question mark. Alright, so the early game I'm going to battle optional trainers because Falkner presents a serious threat for Heracross. Well, that's not entirely true. Falkner's actually not the trainer I'm really scared for. I'm worried for Abe, which is the first trainer inside of his gym. I'll put his team up on screen. By the way, I'm going to have to get graphics for this guy at some point because in so many playthroughs playthroughs, he is much more intimidating when compared with Falkner. I'm lucky he only has one Pokemon, a level 9 Spearow, but as a bird keeper, he has AI modification offensive, meaning he's never going to choose his status moves, instead just spamming Peck, which will do massive damage to a low-level Heracross. Before getting to Violet City, I battle all the trainers with the exception of this guy, Bugkeeper Dawn. He's terrible and has awful experience yields, so I'm just going to skip him. Once I knock out the final wild Pokemon of the route, Heracross is halfway through level 8, which does not seem good enough to take on Abe, but I figured I should just try it to see if it's possible. Horn Attack does more than half to the Spearow, it uses Peck, taking me down to 8 hit points, and luckily I'm able to 2-shot, so he wasn't a problem. That definitely went better than I was expecting, but I don't want to go up against Falkner just yet. Instead, I'm going to head to Sprout Tower, which is an optional area. You don't need Flash to progress through the game. I'm going to clear out the Bellsprout here for additional experience. Heracross is powerful enough that it can one-shot all of them, so this is very fast. In some playthroughs, I don't even finish off the final Sage, but with Heracross, I felt like I might as well. I have the PP to do it, and Horn Attack is just steamrolling everything in here. With him defeated, I head back to the gym, face Birdkeeper Rod, who is much simpler. Both Pidgeys go down to a single hit, and now it's time for Falkner. Well, actually, just before that, I need to talk about the sponsor of this video, Raycon. They make fantastic earbuds with top-tier audio quality, and the best thing is that they are half the price of the other big players in the market. A critical feature for me is their everyday earbuds multi-point connectivity, which allows me to connect with my PC when I'm listening to podcasts while filming these runs, and then I can connect with my Mac when I want to start doing video editing. They also have active noise cancellation, which is perfect for when my orange cat Churro is constantly making noise in the background when I'm trying to stay focused. The earbuds are available in a variety of colors that complement any and all skin tones, and I don't have time to go through all the features, so here are some of them rapid fire. 32-hour battery life, awareness mode, 3 customizable sound styles, weatherproof and sweat resistant, earbud tap functions, and they also offer a 30-day happiness guarantee. Go to buyraycon.com/scotsthoughts for 20 to 50% off your order. Okay, now let's get back to Falkner. Okay, up first, level 7 Pidgey. Am I going to one-hit with Horn Attack? And the answer is yes. Perfect. Okay, only the Pidgeotto. This one does have a flying type move in the form of Gust, but I've over-leveled now, so I take less than half from it on its first hit, and I'm able to 2-shot. Falkner, the flying type specialist, was not an issue for Heracross. And with his badge, I get a key advantage. My attack stat is now boosted by 12.5%, which you can see on the overlay as his little badge icon shows up and my attack stat changes. There is a disadvantage here though, because I received the TM for Mudslap, but I cannot use it on Heracross. Unfortunately, this thing is in the Gligar Club. One reason early Mudslap is so important for a bunch of Pokemon is because the rival in Azalea Town has a Ghastly, which usually cannot be hit by a bunch of the early game normal type moves. Look at Heracross's level up learn set. It learns Fury Attack at level 19 and then Counter at level 27. That means there's only 2 moves I can hit ghost types with in the early game, either Struggle or Fury Cutter once I defeat Bugsy. This graphic shows Ghastly's type effectiveness, and as you can see, bug type moves deal 1/4 damage. So Fury Cutter on the first few turns is really not going to do very much. And if I use Struggle, then I have to face the rest of his team with this move because there's no way for me to gain my PP back. While the Quilava in general isn't as good as the Bayleaf, it is going to be using Ember, and if I'm damaging myself with Struggle every turn, my chances against it are probably not going to be great. To ensure I'm setting myself up for success, I battle a lot of trainers along the next route on my way to Azalea Town. This experience, along with the Rockets in Slowpoke Well, brings Heracross close to level 16 by the time I'm headed into Bugsy's gym. There are 2 mandatory battles here, the twins at the beginning of the gym, as well as the Paris guy, or this bug catcher on the right hand side. However, there are also 2 optional trainers in this gym. The guy with Beedrill has especially good experience yields, so I decide to defeat him as well. This brings Heracross up to level 17, and now I'm ready for the second gym leader. My strategy here is completely brain dead. Just spam Horn Attack and hope that I have enough damage to knock out all of Bugsy's Pokemon. Luckily, because of my typing, I take so little damage from Fury Cutter that this fight is a foregone conclusion. Of course, Heracross easily defeats the second gym leader and earns itself the Fury Cutter TM. I don't teach it right away, instead I backtrack to Route 33 because I am so close to leveling up to 18, which is over a damage rounding threshold. The non-linear boost to my damage is going to be very helpful, especially when my best move against the Ghastly in this case is going to be Fury Cutter. I don't want to spend the time wasting all my PP for struggle, so I'm going to try with this move first. Hopefully it works out for me. Okay, so Ghastly is first. Here's what it can do to me. It can put me to sleep with Hypnosis, paralyze me with Lick, or use Spite to reduce my PP. All of these options are bad, but Paralysis and Hypnosis are by far the worst because they can break Fury Cutter's combo. My initial hit has an effective power of 8, my second hit has an effective power of 16, still doing only chip damage to the Ghastly. Luckily it misses its Hypnosis. My third one has an effective power of 33, which is perfect. It misses another Hypnosis and Fury Cutter knocks the Ghastly out. I did not expect that. On my first attempt with Fury Cutter, I get really lucky and bypass the rival's first Pokemon. This means Fury Cutter has stacked up and it has an effective power against the Quilava of 135, one-shotting. From there, only Zubat's left, and of course, Horn Attack one-shots it. Alright, that is not the battle I was expecting. It was much easier. Inside the forest, I teach Headbutt to Heracross. It's a better move than Horn Attack, 5 more base power, and a 30% chance to flinch. Surprisingly, in Goldenrod City, there isn't a lot to talk about today. I head north of the city, battling Fire Breather Walt for good experience yields. After talking with Floria, I head into National Park, grab myself a Psyduck, which actually shows up decently fast. It is a 30% chance to occur here, just so everyone's aware. I've been experimenting with this HM user instead of grabbing a Krabby and a Dratini later into the game. There are other options like Sandshrew and Poliwag and then Dratini later on. I've just been trying this one out this year and overall it feels kind of good, but probably a little bit less consistent than grabbing Krabby. Inside the Goldenrod Gym, I face only the mandatory trainer and then it's time for Whitney. Looking back on this battle while doing narration, I think I played it incorrectly. I'm choosing Headbutt against the Clefairy, not stacking up Fury Cutter, and I think that would have been the better choice. The reason is the Miltank has 48 speed, and at level 20, Heracross, which is perfect, also has 48 speed. With a speed tie, I'm not always going to be moving first, and I don't always get the chance to flinch with Headbutt, which is the primary reason using this move against Miltank is good, because if you flinch, you break Rollout's combo. Luckily for Heracross, due to its typing, Rollout isn't doing much damage anyways, so even with Headbutt, I'm able to take the win. At this point in the video production process, I had a chance to live out a childhood dream because there was construction happening at my house. So I had to flee my regular location to record audio and hide all the way in the basement. And my new setup, unlike Johto, is priceless, so I recorded a little clip to show it to all of you. As a kid, did any of you build a blanket fort and then play Pokemon inside the blanket fort? Well, I never got the opportunity to do that as a kid, and because there's construction at my house right now making a lot of noise, I have fled my regular location and gone all the way into the basement to set up what is now the most janky recording setup I have ever had, although I think it is fulfilling my childhood dream of having a blanket fort where I do Pokemon stuff inside. So this is what it looks like. There's a box spring here. There's a mattress there. There's moving blankets hung overhead. And then under all of this is where I am sitting with my computer and my microphone and everything. So yeah, like a beetle, I have fled underground and I am now under what we could say is a metaphorical rock. And I'm also fulfilling a childhood dream of mine, so Pokemon in a blanket fort. With Whitney defeated, we need to talk about Heracross's options in the next section of the game, because things do not look good. I spoke at length about the rival's Ghastly and how it was really annoying having to rely on Fury Cutter, and I still have to rely on this move for Morty, because I am not allowed to use Hidden Power in my first playthroughs, even though it's a Dark-type move, and Thief is only available after you get Surf, because you need to defeat the Red Gyarados and explore the Rocket HQ. This is one instance where I am really missing Mudslap, because Morty's gym is filled with Ghost-type trainers, plus Morty himself is a Ghost-type specialist, and the rival in Burned Tower has a Haunter that leads. This means I'm gonna get hit by Curse while I'm trying to stack up Fury Cutters, and if I miss even one, I am probably going to lose in these battles. The Kimono Girls give good experience yields, but through level up, there is no way I'm gonna reach level 54 to get access to Mega Horn to defeat the Ghosts. By the time I finish beating all the evolutions, my Heracross is only level 23. As of late, I'm reconsidering my approach going to the Lighthouse before defeating Morty, but with Heracross I think it makes sense to gain more levels. Plus I am still slower than Morty's Gengar at the current time, and I really don't want that to be the case by the time I'm fighting him. Inside the Lighthouse, as I'm trying to gain experience, I go up against this guy. He's mandatory, he has one Knockdowl. Sometimes it puts you to sleep, which is annoying. In this case though, it lowers my attack, and I've run out of Headbutt, so I have to use Horn Attack. It does slightly less damage. Knockdowl survives, uses Peck, does 4 times damage, and Heracross faints. Okay, I'm gonna let my HM users faint in this case. I'm gonna take the Blackout, which is really annoying because it wastes more and more time. Resets are always always a little bit more efficient. Also, this blackout's really painful because it teleports me all the way back to Ecruteak City because I want to keep this Pokemon Center as my waypoint throughout the mid-game. Instead of heading back to the lighthouse, I go to the burned tower next to face the rival. After all, he only has one ghost type. I lucked past it last time, so maybe I can do the same here again. Fury Cutter does what I can only describe as a pathetic amount of damage. Then Haunter curses me. Every turn this is going to do 25% damage. I'm not able to stack up my Fury Cutters, plus the Haunter paralyzes me with Lick, and I don't even make it by the rival's first Pokemon. For a moment, I contemplated my choices. I didn't save in front of this rival, so I am once again going to have to black out. If you want to see how I was feeling in the moment, go and check out the Heracross stream that I did. Anyways, I let my HM users faint, take a slow blackout. By the way, it takes actually longer than you would expect because the Haunter knocks itself out, cursing my first HM user. This causes Bellsprout to level up many times and try to learn the move Wrap, further delaying my time. If you think this is against my rules because technically my HM user got the victory over one of his Pokemon, it isn't because I'm not actually making any progress in the game. Yes, my Bellsprout leveled up, but that was actually a downside of having to take the blackout there. So I was punished for the fact that the rival got to use another curse. This time before fighting him, I make sure to save. I know that this is probably going to take multiple resets. Right away, the Haunter paralyzes Heracross, then uses Curse. Fury Cutter isn't doing very much damage. I get my combo broken and reset due to paralysis. Yes, the status condition does reset Fury Cutter's counter, which is so frustrating, so that's a second loss here for Heracross. And it's actually my first reset in the playthrough. I have 2 blackouts and 1 reset, so 3 faults total. Starting in 2025, I'm going to be tracking faults on my overlay rather than just resets because right now the blackouts are hidden from all of you until the end of the playthrough when I read them out. Obviously, this approach of facing the rival is likely not going to work at this level. Instead, I'm going to go and train. The experience yields in Johto are so bad, but this route is actually okay. Some of the wild Pokemon here give decent experience, like this wild Tauros which shows up. I actually wonder, how well would Tauros do in Pokemon Crystal? That's a question I asked myself a long time ago and I never got a chance to follow through on it. But since this year is about normal types, maybe I'll have to do this one later in the year. I make it back to the lighthouse, take revenge on the Noctowl, and then I fight basically every other trainer in here, including annoying people like this bird keeper who has 5 Pidgey. Usually when I fight him it's because I made an input mistake and walked into his line of sight, but today it's intentional. I do want as much experience as is possible. During my training here, Heracross levels up to 27 where I teach Counter in the place of Endurer. If you're familiar with Generation 1 mechanics, you'll know that this move can inflict damage to Ghost-type Pokemon in those games, but starting in Generation 2, Ghost types are immune to it. So this is not the answer I need for the rival or for Morty. At the end of the lighthouse, I face Birdkeeper Dennis, grab the TM for Swagger, which might actually be useful against the Ghosts, but I'm going to try something else first. Before making it back to Ecruteak City, I battle wild Pokemon, depleting all my power points so that I can use Struggle against the rival. This move utilizes Heracross's attack stat, which is 103 currently, but still it doesn't one-shot the Haunter. That allows it to use Curse on me, and now I have to use Struggle for the remainder of the fight. It does more than half to the Quilava, I take damage from the volatile status condition, and then the fire type crits me with Ember. Heracross survives, but with orange health, putting me in a not great position for the remainder of the battle. Against Zubat, Struggle does not do enough damage. I can't believe it, and so curse damage gives Heracross another reset. I tried 2 more times, and I got 2 more losses, so let's do something else. The problem with that statement is that there isn't a lot to do in this section of the game. I could use a rare candy to go to level 30 over damage rounding, or I could go to the Lake of Rage and clear out some additional trainers. I decided to save my rare candies for the late game and level up on this route so that I can get to 30 over the damage rounding threshold. I was close to knocking out the Zubat in one hit, so I thought that this level might give me the damage I need. But it's really not going to work if the Haunter just paralyzes me right away every time. It happened 2 times in a row before I finally make it to the Quilava without that status condition, but this time I have Curse, and I'm back at orange hit points by the time the Zubat comes out. At level 30, I am able to one-hit, but Magnemite is last. It's a steel type, I go for Struggle, and I knock it out in a single hit. However, Heracross doesn't have enough health to survive the recoil. I tried using a Paralyzed Cure Berry to hopefully get around the status condition that the Haunter dishes out, and then I crit the Quilava, knocking it out in a single turn so I never take damage from Ember. I thought this was my moment. Like, I really did. Then Magnemite survives Struggle on a tiny amount of health and uses Supersonic, the move with 55% accuracy. Of course, it inflicts the status condition against Heracross. I hit myself instead of attacking. Magnemite goes for Sonic Boom, and then Heracross hits itself again. so I have another loss. This battle is so frustrating. I can't communicate it to you. I've done this run twice now, once in Pokemon Gold, like I said before, and every time I think about Heracross, I just think about how bad it was against these ghost types. I came back, tried again, make it to the Magnemite, it just barely survives, and Heracross faints again. Heracross has 9 resets and 2 blackouts. I think it's time to do something else. The rival is clearly not going to happen. I backtrack all the way to the first route of the game and pick up the Pink Bow. Now, this seems strange because Struggle is a typeless move, but that's not entirely true in this game. Here's a picture of the game's code where it defines all the moves, and you can see that Struggle is indicated to be a normal type move. This is important because the game developers made an oversight. While Struggle does successfully skip things like the same type attack bonus, it does not successfully skip item boosts. So, by equipping the Pink Bow, I can improve Struggle's damage by 10%. If you wanted proof that this works, check out my damage range against the Haunter. I am now able to one-shot using Struggle. Then, against Quilava, I get a 2-hit surviving Ember, but I have a lot more health remaining because I didn't get hit by Curse. Of course, with increased damage, I'm able to one-hit the Zubat, as well as the following Magnemite, and finally, at long last, I have beat the rival. This section of the game really held Heracross up, because of ghost types, and I have to face Morty next. To make it through all the trainers in his gym, I'm going to have to use Struggle. Fury Cutter is just not going to be consistent enough, especially when this first Sage has 5 Pokemon on his team. Going into the battle, I was a little bit concerned that Heracross might do too much damage to itself with Recoil, but luckily for me, it's nowhere near enough. Surprisingly, I don't have to heal throughout all of the trainers in the gym. There are only 3 mandatory people that I have to face because I can skip the second person by walking on this little path. So now, it's time for Morty. I'm not feeling confident. I'm going to go into this fight and use Struggle. I think that that's my best option. Ghastly is first, Struggle 1 hits, as we would expect. The Haunter that follows also goes down to a single hit, which is really encouraging because now he's not going to be able to hit me with Curse. Alright, time for his ace Gengar. Struggle does more than half, and then the Gengar chooses Hypnosis. I am not going to be able to wake up because I don't have a Mint Berry. But luckily for me, Morty's accuracy is terrible. Some AI status moves have a debuff to their accuracy, and Hypnosis is one of those moves. So its accuracy gets multiplied by 0.75, meaning that Morty only has a 45% chance for this move to land. Without the status condition and his Gengar, Morty is finished. I think now the most difficult section of the game is behind us with Heracross. But before proceeding with its playthrough, let's go back and see how Pinsir does throughout this section of the game. Like Heracross, this thing has a fantastic stat spread. 65 HP, 125 attack, 100 defense, 85 speed, 55 special attack, and 70 special defense. The comparison of these two stat spreads is very interesting to me. Pinsir has 65 HP, so 15 less when compared with Heracross. They both have this same attack stat. Pinsir has 25 more defense. They have the same speed stat. Pinsir has 15 more special attack and 25 less special defense. You can see that Game Freak was really trying to make these two a mirror for each other because they both have the slow growth rate. Although Pinsir is a mono bug type, even though it looks like it could be a bug fighting type. In general, for solo challenges, I think that Heracross has the slightly better stat spread, more HP, less special attack, and not a huge amount of defense. The final battle in Pokemon Crystal is against Red, and 5 of his Pokemon are special attackers. So having more physical defense doesn't really help, especially when many Pokemon rely on the move Curse, which boosts your defense stat. Not to mention, lower special defense can become a severe liability because there's a glitch in Generation 2 that prevents this stat from getting a badge boost. Well, at least in the case of Pinsir and Heracross, they're both never going to get that boost in these playthroughs. In terms of move pool, it's a bit of a mixed bag. Pinsir starts with Vice Grip, which is better than Tackle, but it doesn't learn Horn Attack. Instead, it just gets Focus Energy at level 7 and then Bind at level 13. And looking through the remainder of its level up set, it doesn't get something that deals with ghosts. Looking at its TM and HM learn set, it also doesn't get Mud Slap, and the only things that it's going to be able to hit the rival in Burned Tower or Morty's ghosts with are once again Struggle and Fury Cutter. It is in the same position when compared with Heracross. In the early game, I do less training in Sprout Tower, and then backtrack to fight Birdkeeper Ape right away. I don't have a double weakness to flying type moves, and I also have more defense, so Pinsir is able to dispatch Ape with relative ease. Falkner, on the other hand, is a little bit scary. I get set up with Focus Energy right away, and because I don't have Horn Attack and I'm at a lower level, I'm not able to one-shot the first Pidgey, so it does 2 turns of chip damage before I take it out. Pidgeotto is next, Vice Grip does less than half, and Gust is doing a decent amount, although not enough to knock Pinsir out, and while it does recover health with the berry, even without it, I still would have won. I decided to fight some extra trainers along the way to Azalea Town, and I made the choice to fight Hiker Anthony before heading into Azalea Town, which ended up being a terrible mistake. He has a Geodude, which is a rock type, and it resists Vice Grip. Plus, it also knows the move Rock Throw, which is super effective against bugs, and because of this move, Pinsir faints. I'm going to black out here because I don't want to go back before Falkner. The game ensures that things are fair because I have to knock out the Geodude with Bellsprout. It only has Vine Whip. Luckily though, the Machop finishes me off so I don't make progress with my HM users. Like with Heracross, I am just being delayed by them. On my way back through the cave, I fight some other trainers like this guy with Onix. It has decent experience yields, although I don't knock it out quickly. I have to use a combination of Bind and Vice Grip to take it down. It's slow going, but eventually I defeat it. On the other side of the cave, I skip Hiker Anthony and defeat all the Rockets. Okay, time for Bugsy's gym. I'm going to take on all the trainers here to level up as much as possible. That gets me to 16, and then I take on the Bug-type specialist. Metapod gives me a perfect opportunity to set up focus energy, ensuring that I crit a little bit more throughout the remainder of the fight. The Scyther is doing more damage when compared with what it did against Heracross, but it's still not enough for Bugsy to win. So, time to take on the rival, and I was expecting to have lots of losses here, having to rely on Fury Cutter. But surprisingly, just like with Heracross, Pinsir pulls through, making these two playthroughs a good mirror of each other. Although, I'm sure that uses up all of my luck against ghosts for this run. Okay, rapid fire from here. In the forest, Pinsir learns Headbutt. Then, north of the city, I battle some optional trainers to get a little bit more experience with Pinsir, leveling it up to 20 before I take on Whitney. Since I played this run second, I did know to use Fury Cutter against Whitney, but I sneak in a focus energy right before, just in case I get an extra crit. I get 3 turns of setup against the Clefairy, bringing its base power up to 135 by the time the Miltank comes out. This takes it all the way down to red, and rollout has stacked up once because the Miltank is also speed tied with Pinsir, but its second rollout doesn't do enough damage and Pinsir hits with Fury Cutter. With Pinsir I take a simple sequence of events: Kimono Girls, Lighthouse for experience, and then back to the rival in Burned Tower. While I fight him and likely lose over and over again, I just want to say that these two Pokemon might be some of the Pokemon that have the most potential to improve once Hidden Power is on the table. The fact that I could use Hidden Power Ground to stomp these ghosts is going to make these playthroughs not only more fun, but also way faster. Well, unless Fury Cutter just stacks up against the first Haunter, then one-shots the following Quilava, as well as the Magnemite, and that leaves only Zubat, but Fury Cutter is still on a spree, and it takes out his final Pokemon as well. Pinsir clears Rival 2 on its first attempt. Although this was not skill, this was not something inherent about how Pinsir works in comparison with Heracross, this was just blind luck. Part of me was wondering, and I'm sure part of you is wondering, if maybe Fury Cutter is the better strategy here rather than running Struggle like I did with Heracross. So I decided to try it out during the gym, and it is not better against the random trainers here. I end up taking 1 reset on the final one before making it to Morty. Here's what can go wrong during this fight using Fury Cutter. Well, number 1, it's Curse. If I miss it all during this battle, I'm basically gonna lose. That's how the first battle ends. If the Ghastly goes for Lick instead of Curse, then I can get paralyzed, and this is also going to be a loss. If I make it to Gengar without my Fury Cutter combos being broken, then my effective power is 67, but this is not enough to knock out Morty's Ace Ghost, only to do more than half. I've taken too much damage to this point, so this is my 3rd loss. What ends up needing to happen is the Ghastly going for Lick on turn 1, not paralyzing me, then Curse on turn 2 so I knock it out, allowing myself to take no damage from the status condition before the Haunter comes in. Then it burns my Mint Berry with Hypnosis, not doing any damage with something like Nightshade, and I can use Fury Cutter to knock it out, taking only 1 turn of status condition damage. With Gengar coming out, I needed to miss Hypnosis. It does. Because of that, I take down his Ace, have enough Fury Cutter set up, and as long as I don't miss, I was assuming the final Haunter would be a 1-hit, but it just barely isn't. Curse damage brings Pinsir down to 19 hit points, and if Haunter uses Nightshade, I lose. And it does, so Pinsir gets a 4th reset. This is where the 2 routes are going to diverge. I backtrack to the first route of the game, but not to get the Pink Bow, this time to grab the Paralyzed Cure Berry. Then I go to the Lake of Rage and train up more. My goal is to get to level 30 as fast as possible. I figured running the Paralyzed Cure Berry here gives me a little bit more flexibility against the first Ghastly in case it uses Lick. Turns out what's most important in this battle is the Haunter and the Gengar missing Hypnosises, and then the final Haunter being a one-shot now with my level 30 damage range. So, Morty is defeated, let's check in with the results as they stand so far. Here's the timeline graphic, and Heracross is definitely losing this race. Pinsir was able to defeat Morty significantly faster, but I think that's largely because it lucked through the rival, whereas Heracross really struggled during that battle. To better compare the results, let's check the game time. But no, Heracross is still losing to Pinsir even in this metric, likely because it spent time spamming out PP to get access to Struggle. From here though, I think things are going to be simple for both of these Pokemon. I'm going to jump right into Pinsir's Chuck fight because this is so simple. Headbutt, two-shots the Primeape, then against Poliwrath I get a flinch, it misses Hypnosis, and then I knock it out. Pinsir also resists fighting-type moves, so the best thing the Poliwrath could do is Surf, but I had a Mint Berry just in case of Hypnosis, and Surf definitely wouldn't have one-hit. With Fly outside of battle, I head back to the first route of the game and pick up the Pink Bow for Pinsir. Its primary attacking move is Headbutt, and it probably will be for the next little section of the game, so more damage will help. I also backtracked to Violet City to pick up this rare candy just across the lake. I'm going to talk more extensively about the choice to pick up these rare candies and how much time they each take later on in the second playthroughs, but in the first runs I'm trying to play as safely as possible, so I'm going to pick up all of them. Alright, I do think we should take some time and talk about the red Gyarados. This Pokemon can sometimes be problematic. It has Dragon Rage, which does 40 hit points of damage, and if your Pokemon has less than 80 health, then you could suffer here. Luckily for Pinsir, even with the lower base HP, it has enough damage to 3-shot, so because I'm faster, I can only take a maximum of 2 Dragon Rages before knocking the Gyarados out. Okay, at the beginning of this video, I didn't do my regular move pool dissection. I didn't talk about what is likely Pinsir's best move throughout this entire playthrough. Since we're going through the monotony of the Rocket plotline, I think it's time to draw attention to it. Pinsir has access to Swords Dance. Unlike in Generation 1, where this move is a TM, which you can teach to many Pokemon, in Generation 2 it is not abundantly available. Instead, only Pokemon that learn it through level up or Pokemon that are transferred from Generation 1 can have access to it. To this point on the channel, I don't think I've played a Pokemon that has access to this move in Generation 2. Outside of Smeargle, which could use Sketch to take it, and I did choose to do that in that playthrough because this move is so good. I went on Bulbapedia to check which Pokemon can learn this move in Generation 2, so let's go through the list. Farfetch'd, Scyther, Pinsir, Scizor. Maybe you can see what's happening. There is a theme here. Those are the only Pokemon that get it through level up, and that means those are the only Pokemon that will ever get it in Generation 2 because I'm not transferring Pokemon back from Generation 1. What this means is we have a very small list of Pokemon that have access to this incredible setup move. We have 3 bug types and 1 normal type. Maybe there's a little bit of a rivalry that's happening here. I think this might even become a dance-off. But one of the frustrations with Pinsir is getting to level 42 because with a slow growth rate, this takes forever. By the time I'm cleaning up the final executive, I'm well on my way to level 35, but still nowhere close to 42. That said, there is no need for Headbutt against Price. My attack stat alongside Headbutt is more than enough. With him defeated, Pinsir is level 35. This is not a good place for it to be. Up next is Jasmine, and she's a Steel-type specialist, and my moveset is currently Headbutt, Focus Energy, Vice Grip, and Fury Cutter. All moves that are terrible against Steel-type Pokemon. Not to mention, the Steelix also has Rock Throw, a move that it almost never goes for because Iron Tail usually does more damage. But in this case, it's super effective, so Jasmine's ace is going to be choosing it. I can't believe I'm saying this, but Submission is only a level and a half away, so I'm gonna spend time training to get this level before I face Jasmine. I hate Submission. It's one of my least favorite moves. 80 base power, 80% accuracy, and 25 PP. It also inflicts recoil damage, and Pinsir does not get the same type attack bonus with it. However, I still think it's my best choice against Steel-type Pokemon. It takes a while to level up to 37, and maybe I could have used rare candies to speed up that process a little bit. But remember, I'm trying to play as safe as possible in the first playthrough. Okay, so now time to roll intro. Jasmine, the best gym leader in all of Johto. Her lead is Magnemite. Now you might be wondering, why is Submission's effective power 90? Well, it's cause Chuck's badge gave me a 12.5% boost to fighting type moves, which is really convenient right before the Steel type specialist. I'm able to one-shot her lead, Steelix comes in next, I do more than half to it, and then the Steelix chooses Iron Tail. Okay, so that actually makes sense. This move, when neutral after the same type attack bonus, is going to do more damage than a super effective Rock Throw. The only time that the Steelix would choose Rock Throw is if it's going to do more damage than Iron Tail, so it would need a 4 times weakness from the rock type move. Steelix isn't doing nearly enough damage to Pinsir, but I do fail to get the knockout with my second hit. This allows Jasmine to use a Hyper Potion, buying herself more time and more recoil damage from my fighting type move. However, after the potion and one more hit, taking the Steelix back down to half health, Pinsir rolls a critical hit and her ace faints. All that's left is Magnemite, but I have red health as well. So is Pinsir gonna knock itself out? And the answer is no. It survives with 7 hit points and earns itself the mineral badge. At the top of the radio tower, I have to face the executive, whose name is Petrol in the remakes. I only have 1 PP left on Headbutt, which is unfortunate to say the least. Now I guess I'm gonna have to use Fury Cutter for the remainder of these poison types, and the bug type move really isn't good here. This is definitely suboptimal play, but I am very happy to report that Fury Cutter, after stacking up, is able to one-shot all of the poison types, which was not the case for Headbutt. So maybe I actually got forced into the better strategy here. I take that back. It's not a mistake. This was the best play. I did the right thing by not replenishing Headbutt's PP. Petrol is defeated, and Pinsir heads to the underground to face the rival. This has got to be one of the funniest battles against any rival in the Pokemon series. His Quilava has not evolved, but both of his other starters have. This is just because of the level that the Pokemon come at during this fight. As you can see, once I defeat the Golbat, then the Quilava comes out and it's level 32, but it requires level 36 to evolve, whereas both Feraligatr and Meganium only need level 32. I think it's kind of silly that the developers let Lance get illegal moves like Rock Slide, but they didn't just evolve this Quilava into a Typhlosion. That definitely would have made this fight more difficult. In this case though, I'm happy they didn't make this fight more difficult because there is another ghost type coming up. Magnemite paralyzes me before the Haunter comes in, and then, because of paralysis and curse, Pinsir gets a loss. No, not one loss, 2 losses. Actually, 3 losses. This Haunter is absolutely awful. 4 losses, 5 losses. Yes, this time to the Golbat. And I attempted a 6th and final time, and once again, I get another loss. So apparently the rival in the underground is a wall for Pinsir. I did not have that on my bingo card when I first sat down to do these runs. I expected because the Typhlosion team this battle would be simple, but I was forgetting that the Haunter has the potential to be extremely difficult. Before going back to the underground, I'm going to do a couple upgrades for Pinsir. Grab the Return TM in the department store, as well as vitamins, mostly protein, to improve my attack stat. I teach Return in the place of Focus Energy because I'm not using that move anymore, and then I go up against the rival again. Return is able to one-shot the Golbat, bypassing its annoyances with Wing Attack and Confuse Ray. Return is also able to one-shot the Quilava, and then against the Magnemite, I go for Submission, ensuring I don't get hit by paralysis. Now is where I need to get a little bit lucky because I need to hit Fury Cutter and hopefully knock it out in 3 hits, but it looks like I just barely won't have the damage needed. However, Pinsir rolls a crit, I move on to the Sneasel, and Fury Cutter one-shots. Okay, what feels like another lucky win. At the very end of the Rocket plotline, Pinsir levels up to 43, and this is the moment where I catch everyone who's been calling out my mistakes previously in the video. Scott, it's not level 42, Pinsir learns Swords Dance at 43. Yeah, I've realized that just now, and the reason is because 42 is on my mind. Both Scyther and Scizor learned Swords Dance at level 42, 1 level before Pinsir. Anyways, at 43 I get Swords Dance, and of course I'm going to put this in the place of Headbutt. My set now is Return, Submission, Swords Dance, and Fury Cutter. 3 physical moves and 1 fantastic setup move. I stomp the final executive and then make my way through Ice Path to Claire's gym. Her team is 3 Dragonairs and 1 Kingdra. The only way you lose here is if you don't one-hit the Dragonairs and they get Thunder Wave off on you. Well, unless the Kingdra does massive damage with Surf. Say I'm playing a Rock Ground type. And I'm actually going to play 1 more Rock Ground type this year. I can't believe I'm doing this to myself after how bad Onyx was. Anyway, in this case, Return one-shots all the Dragonairs. I was just buying time. Kingdra's last, and I'm able to 2-hit it, so Pinsir gets through this fight with no difficulties. Okay, time for Pinsir to pick up the 2 least efficient rare candies in the entire playthrough. The one in Whirl Islands and the one in Mount Mortar. The first one of these takes a total of 46 seconds to obtain, and the second one is 41 seconds. So roughly a minute and a half are spent picking these 2 items up. If a Pokemon doesn't need the extra 2 levels, then skipping these 2 candies can save a lot of time in a follow-up playthrough. Before the league, there is one more rival battle, but finally I have an answer to his annoying ghost types. And the answer is Sneasel. I can set up Swords Dance against it because this thing is pathetic. Once I get to +4, I start my sweep. One-shot with Return, one-shot the Golbat with Return, one-shot the now Typhlosion with Return. It was never a threat because it only fully evolves by this fight. Then for the Magneton, I can use Submission and make it to the Haunter, where now Fury Cutter is at least doing decent damage per hit. I'm able to 2-shot and then 1-hit the final Kadabra. Since Pinsir is ready for the Elite Four, we need to catch up with Heracross. Chuck is just as easy as he was with Pinsir. I don't think either of these Pokemon is ever going to struggle against him. In this case though, I flinched twice on the Poliwrath, so it doesn't even get a chance to miss a Hypnosis. Okay, so I'm facing Price now, and I've already completed the Rocket plotline. Heracross is slightly more leveled when compared with Pinsir, just because I played this one first, so I'm probably playing more conservatively, battling a few additional trainers along the way. The thing is for Heracross, this thing does not get Submission at level 37 like Pinsir did, which feels really unfair since this is the fighting type, but the only 3 same type moves that it learns are Counter, Reversal, and Rock Smash. Counter does not get to leverage the type interaction to deal more damage, Reversal only deals a lot of damage if you're at very low health, and Rock Smash is base 20 power in Generation 2. So once again, Game Freak gives a Generation 2 Pokemon in its debut generation a terrible set, making it perform worse, at least to this point in the game, when compared with its Generation 1 equivalent. And Pinsir and Scyther are both available in the bug catching contest, which is a much more obvious spot to find a powerful bug type. Okay, frustrations aside, let's continue with Heracross. I think the best option for it, for Jasmine, is to use counter. Yeah, I didn't think I would use this move in Generation 2 because it seems pretty bad, but this is one case where I think it'll be the faster choice. I just really want to be able to knock out the Magnemites with 2 hits from Headbutt. Unfortunately for Heracross at level 36, it is just barely not getting this damage range. Luckily though, the Magnemite misses with Thunder Wave, so I do not become paralyzed. Another advantage for Heracross here is that the AI chooses to send in Steelix next. This is a deterministic calculation based on type matchups. It's looking at 2 things. Will the Pokemon it sends out have a type disadvantage against my Pokemon, or will the Pokemon it sends out have a move that is super effective against my Pokemon? And Steelix technically has a move that has a typing that is super effective against my bug type. It has Sunny Day, which is a fire type move, and so it thinks it's super effective. Joke's on Jasmine though, because Sunny Day doesn't deal any damage. This is where I want to start using counter. It has lower priority, so Steelix attacks first with Iron Tail, but my first counter does not do enough damage. However, my defense was lowered, and that's very important, because then after a Hyper Potion, when Steelix hits me with Iron Tail again, it does more damage, reflecting more back to it from counter, allowing Heracross to one-hit. Okay, this looks like it's going to be it, but I only have 23 hit points left over for the following Magnemite. I go for Headbutt, it does half, now because I've leveled up once during this fight. I also flinch the Magnemite, and as a result, Heracross wins. By the way, this is why I play the game without Hidden Power in my first attempt, just because that battle would have been so much simpler if I had access to a move like Hidden Power Ground. It would be super effective against all of her Pokemon, and likely give Heracross a much more confident win. Okay, Petrol, this one does not go as well as with Pinsir. I'm trying to use Headbutt. I should be using Fury Cutter, although that would be breaking the timeline. Remember, I played this playthrough first. So I didn't know that Fury Cutter was likely the better choice, and as a result get poisoned, as well as my accuracy lowered not once but twice, leading this battle to end in an explosive defeat. I didn't figure it out for the next attempt, but I just continue using Headbutt. Still, in this case it is enough, and I pull through Petrol. Okay, time for the rival to give Pinsir so many problems. With Heracross, things are a little bit different. I flinch the Golbat so it doesn't cause any issues. Then for Quilava, I take a Flame Wheel, but it only does about a fifth, maybe a little bit less. Next, I have to face the Haunter. My only choice here is Fury Cutter. It's doing okay damage. I get cursed, take some damage from Shadow Ball, and then knock it out. However, because of how much Fury Cutter has stacked up, I'm able to one-shot the following Magnemite, as well as the final Sneasel. And yeah, Heracross gets a first attempt victory here. I'm hoping this makes up for the major time loss it had against Rival 3 in Burned Tower. The rest of the Rocket plotline is uneventful, so I'm going to skip ahead to Claire. I said previously that she's easy as long as you one-hit all of her Dragonairs. That's still true for Heracross. Remember, this Pokemon has the same attack stat when compared with Pinsir. Pinsir went into the battle against Claire at level 44, utilizing Return, which had an effective power of 117. For Heracross, the effective power on my Return is only 105, largely due to the fact that I'm not holding the pink bow. The absence of this item allows the Dragonair to survive and use Thunder Wave, paralyzing me. Since I was holding a Mint Berry just to save time, I didn't want to swap it off. Now I am not going to be able to heal the status condition. Because of this, I do have one loss to Claire. The solution for Heracross is simple. Pink Bow, then it one-hits the Dragonairs just like with Pinsir, and the Dragon-type Specialist is simple to defeat. Okay, I'm going to do something that I very rarely do. At the end of Dragon's Den, I use an escape rope to leave the area, and then instead of immediately going towards Victory Road, I head back to Ecruteak City. This is so I can explore the Burned Tower with Strength, because on the right-hand side of this area, there is TM20, which I'm going to be using later into the playthrough. For now though, if you're watching in the background, it's just going to remain a mystery. All of you who actually pays attention to the video content, you can just look over and see which TM this is. It's one that I've never used before in a playthrough of Pokemon Crystal. Before the league, Heracross has one major advantage over Pinsir, which it can finally unlock, the TM for Earthquake. I teach this in the place of Fury Cutter, making my moveset now Return, Earthquake, Reversal, and Headbutt. Unfortunately for the rival, I don't get to rely on Swords Dance. However, my moves are powerful enough that I'm just one-shotting pretty much all of his Pokemon. Earthquake gives me coverage against the Typhlosion, and I don't have to use Fury Cutter against the Haunter like Pinsir did. Instead, Earthquake just takes it out in one hit because in Generation 2 there are no abilities, so Haunter isn't immune to my ground attacks. Beyond that, only Kadabra and Magneton are left, and of course they're easy to clean up. Now it's time for the Elite Four. Things do not start well for Heracross. It has an immediate problem. Return is not one-shotting the Zatus on Will's team. The first one uses Psychic, which is super effective because I'm a fighting type. And then the second Zatu survives, uses Confuse Ray, Will uses a Max Potion, Heracross hits itself, fails to get the knockout on the next turn, and Zatu KOs with Psychic. Okay, a quick and obvious loss. I can go back to Victory Road and level up to 48 over the next damage rounding threshold, where I am sure that I'm going to be able to one-hit both of the Zatu. And I was right. Return now one-hits both of them. I move on to the Jinx, which is Frail. The Executor tries Leech Seed, which I just dodge, and then all that's left is Slowbro. While it does try to set up with Curse, it doesn't prevent a 2-turn knockout, so Will was essentially free now that Heracross is the right level. Koga's next. His Venomoth, of course, is a Psychic Flying type. If you have any questions about why that's the case, just look at its move pool. Gust and Psychic. A flying move and a psychic move. It only makes sense. Also, it's pink and it has wings. Luckily for me, Return one-hits the terrifying Pokemon and I move on to the Crobat. Return does not one-hit here, but it just sets up double team and I don't miss, so basically free. Fortress is next. I can use Earthquake here to slowly chip away at it, and then the ground type move just one-hits the Muck. Okay, simple. And things continue being easy against Bruno. My typing is quite good against him because the bug type resists the fighting type, plus physical moves are very strong against the Hitmons, which have low physical defense. Machamp is likely the scariest Pokemon on his team. However, it chooses Rock Slide, which does very little damage. He wastes some time with a Max Potion, and then his ace goes down. Last is Onix, and I have Earthquake. Okay, moving on to Karen. You will note between the battles I healed, but that's a mistake. I should have left my health a little bit lower just so the Umbreon is more likely to prioritize a move like Feint Attack. I was most concerned getting hit by Sand Attack, but it instead confuses me, which could also be bad. However, then I knock it out and move on to the Vileplume. I don't have enough damage to one-shot, so I get paralyzed. Now I'm confused. Now I have 2 status conditions, but they don't prevent me from attacking against the Gengar. Alright, maybe I'm gonna pull through. Murkrow comes out next. It's absolutely terrible, using Feint Attack, which does almost no damage. And last is Houndoom, and this is the place where luck comes and gets me. Heracross doesn't move because of its status condition. As a result, Houndoom hits with 2 flamethrowers, and that's that. In the next battle, everything is different. I get hit by a Sand Attack, but then I don't miss against the Vileplume. This time though, I have a Berry to counter the status condition, so I can move first against the Gengar one-shotting. The Murkrow is also simple to take out, leading to the final Houndoom, which I'm still faster than. I was just worried about accuracy here. Luckily I don't miss, and it goes down to a single hit as well. After all of this, it is champion time. I can't set up, so I have to go for Return against the Gyarados and knock it out in 2 hits. Next, Lance chooses to send in the Aerodactyl. I wasn't expecting that, but it makes sense in retrospect because the Aerodactyl has Wing Attack, which does 4 times damage. And it does a lot, more than half with its first hit. And my Return didn't do enough to 2-shot, so Heracross faints. I need to make sure that I have the 2-shot, so I'm going to use Rare Candies to level up now. Because I haven't skipped any, I have a total of 7 in my bag, which I can use to bring Heracross up to level 58 if I want. At level 54, I have to choose if I want to teach Megahorn, and in this case, I decided against it, keeping Headbutt for the flinch chance instead. I use the final Rare Candies, going all the way to 58, and then take on Lance again. Now I can confidently 2-hit the Aerodactyl and move on to his final Pokemon, but I'm still not in a great position. Luckily, Return does enough to one-shot the Charizard, and now things get a little bit weird. He sends in his Ace Dragonite first because it has the move Fire Blast, which does so much damage to Heracross. However, I survive on 4 hit points. This allows Return to connect again, knocking out his Ace. Lance set me up here because when Heracross's HP is under 4.2%, then the effective power of Reversal is 200. This move also gets the same type attack bonus, so its effective power skyrockets up to 300, then it gets the type base boost from Chuck's Gym, and all of that gives it an effective power even when resisted on these Dragonites of 168. As a result, I'm able to one-shot both of them and defeat Lance. Close call for Heracross. I'm glad I didn't have to rely on Headbutt. Now let's head to Johto. This section of the game rarely has much to talk about, so I'll just cover the main items that I'm going to pick up. Of course, Curse, just in case I need it. It's a fantastic setup move. I also grabbed the TM for Protect so I can cancel out Pikachu's use of Charm at the beginning of the red fight. Now for most Pokemon I would grab the leftovers in the little diner over here, but I'm going to skip it for Heracross because I think Reversal is going to be its answer at the very end of the game. However, to make this strategy work, I need to be able to survive hits from red and have very low health to max out Reversal's power. I also need to outspeed Red's entire team. His fastest Pokemon is Espeon with 184 speed, and it looks like Heracross is on track to get the speed it needs to move first against it. I don't have any resets during Kanto, so we'll just watch my speed stat go up as we defeat all the gym leaders. By the time I take out Janine, I am at 181 speed. Okay, time for Blue. This is going to be the last major battle of this section of the game. He's actually quite straightforward in this fight. Instead of using Wing Attack with Pidgeot, which really would have improved Reversal's damage, he chooses Mirror Move, reflecting Return, and the enemy Pokemon have their base Friendship stats, so this does almost nothing. I knock out his lead, he sends in the Arcanine next because it has a Fire-type move, but I have Earthquake for it. Return one-shots the Alakazam, the Gyarados sets up Rain Dance, then feints. That leads to Executor, which uses Leech Seed, and last is Rhydon. Once again though, Earthquake's great. I one-shot and level up to 65, getting exactly 184 speed. But during the Kanto section of the game, I picked up 3 more rare candies. Using them brings Heracross up to level 68 over a damage rounding threshold and over the speed threshold needed to move first against all of Red's Pokemon. Alright, it is time for the final battle. Pikachu's first, I go for Return and one shot. Alright, now it's time to talk about the TM that I picked up earlier on. In Burn Tower, TM20 exists, and it is Endurer. I'm going to be using this move to get Heracross down to 1 hit point, then I'm going to sweep using Reversal. I felt there was a complication with this strategy. I'm going to need to 2-hit the Charizard because I didn't believe in Reversal's damage. So what I have to do is flinch first turn with Headbutt and then knock it out with my second attack. I got caught here in super effectiveness thinking that Reversal is not very effective against the Charizard, but because of its incredibly high base power, it's still going to do more damage when compared with the normal type move. I choose Return, Charizard survives, and that's that for my first battle. I tried again, and again, and again, and again with Headbutt, but I'm just not getting the flinches against Charizard. Finally I do, I'm able to endure the hit and use Reversal to knock out the Flaming Lizard. Okay, I outspeed everything else, but Espeon is next, and like Charizard, it resists fighting type moves. However, Reversal is still going to do the most damage, and it is enough to knock out the evolution. Beyond that, things get easier. I have 675 effective power against the Snorlax. No matter how much HP it has, it's going down. All that's left is Blastoise. I go for Reversal, and Heracross pulls it off. It gets a first playthrough time of 1 hour 48 minutes and 17 seconds with 20 resets, 2 blackouts at level 69, with a game time of 6 hours and 23 minutes. First of all, I want to talk about the positives. I did not have to utilize Curse for this final battle, I did not have to utilize the Quick Claw for this final battle, and I did not have to use Leftovers for the final battle. Plus, Return wasn't the go-to move. When I chose it, I lost, which is just so satisfying. While Headbutt did play a key role, it was only used on one turn during the battle, so really, Reversal and Endure are the MVPs here, and they allowed us to even bypass my favorite move, Rest. That said, Heracross's first playthrough was honestly dismal. The section of the game in Ecruteak City was unbearable, and I am so glad I'm going to get access to Hidden Power for my follow-up attempt. But before we get to see Heracross stomp the ghosts, let's go back and finish Pinsir's first playthrough. Will is a little bit weird. I'm not able to one-shot the second Xatu, so it confuses me and then he max potions, but in general he's not a threat. Pinsir does not have the fighting type, which really helps it here, but bug moves are not a good choice against Will, just because the Xatu are flying types and the Jinx could lovely kiss me if I'm not able to one-shot it. I felt like Return was good enough, and I was right, it pulls me through after a bit of a messy battle. Koga's next. This one's way more straightforward. I'm just going to set up Swords Dance once against the first Ariados, which is basically useless. Its moves are Double Team, Spiderweb, Baton Pass, and Giga Drain. That's free setup for me, and after that, I one-shot all of Koga's Pokemon until the Fortress, which never goes down to a single hit. I go for Return, doing almost half, and then Submission, knocking it out. Last is Muck, and Return seals the deal. As was the case against Koga, Bruno's first Pokemon is also useless. It's Hitmontop. It loves to go for moves like Dig or Quick Attack, doing no damage, so I'm just going to set up to +6 with Swords Dance and then sweep Bruno's entire team. This actually ends up being a really interesting fight. I take chip damage from the Hitmontop, which can be useful against Karen, because her Umbreon is less likely to use Sand Attack if you have a little bit of damage. Then the Hitmonchan does not go for Mach Punch, which is disappointing, but it ends up being okay. I miss Submission against the Onix. It sets up with Sandstorm, and this move does 1/8 in damage every turn. This is honestly not nice. It brings Pinsir down to lowish health by the time I knock out the Machamp with Return, and then all that's left is Hitmonlee. Sandstorm hits one more time, and I fall to 33 hit points before knocking out Bruno's final Pokemon. I decided to try to leverage my low hit points against Umbreon. What if I can set up Swords Dance once for free and have it go for Feint Attack, which is exactly what happens. Pinsir survives on 13 hit points and then Return one-shots Karen's defensive lead. Return continues its streak, one-shotting the Houndoom, the Vileplume, and then he sends in Gengar. Uh-oh, this is the problem. Now I have to use Fury Cutter against this. Another ghost that is going to mess up these bug types, and due to Curse, Pinsir faints. So the solution here is to use a healing item, be at full health, then set up Swords Dance all the way to +6, knock out the Umbreon, and while my accuracy was lowered by one stage, I'm still accurate enough to finish off the remainder of Karen's Pokemon. Although I'll mention the fact that I'm using Fury Cutter here just so I have massive damage against the Gengar. Okay, time for Lance. This one is so straightforward. Set up Swords Dance on the Gyarados, and then sweep his entire team using a combination of Submission for the Aerodactyl and Return for everything else. This kind of looks close, but it really isn't because I'm fast enough to move first against all of Lance's Pokemon. Alright, late game with Pinsir, let's talk about it. Kanto is simple. We're going to skip all the gym leaders until Blaine. Yeah, Blaine. I went into this fight with the perfect amount of health. I figured it was fitting, and then I miss Submission on the Magcargo and it goes for Flamethrower, knocking Pinsir out. Like, what? I did not expect this to happen. Anyways, it's a really embarrassing loss. I just use a healing item and then I come back in and completely stomp Blaine. I'll just have all of you know that the Magcargo usually goes for Curse on the first turn, but that's probably because your Pokemon is at full health and it sees it doesn't have the damage range, since Magcargo is quite honestly terrible. That's another Pokemon that's going to be really bad against all the water types like Onix was earlier in the year. Luckily for me though, it's not in the cards for this year. Against Blue, I set up with Swords Dance at the beginning of the battle on the Pidgeot, and then I sweep his entire team. Yeah, this one is also straightforward. Now let's talk about Red. I have saved all 10 rare candies before this fight, so I can use them to bring Pinsir up to level 69. Alright, let's talk about my move pool for this battle. Return, Submission, Swords Dance, and Fury Cutter. I figure I can just one-shot the Pikachu at the beginning of the battle and move on to whatever's next, which I know is going to be the Venusaur because it has Sunny Day. Remember the interaction I mentioned at Jasmine? Yeah, it applies here too. Since the Venusaur's only damage-dealing moves are Solar Beam and Giga Drain, I can set up here essentially for free with Swords Dance. Pinsir has the same base speed as Heracross, so now I'm going to be moving first against all of Red's team. And, as you would expect, Return one-shots every single one of them. With that, Pinsir clocks in with its first playthrough time of 1 hour, 31 minutes, and 31 seconds, with 13 resets. Okay, a lot of 1s and 3s in those numbers. I guess that's cool. I also had one blackout, but then the combo stops being nice here because I'm at level 69. This is a game time of 5 hours and 29 minutes. Okay, first playthrough results are in. I think Heracross wins in terms of style points. The Endure reversal strategy is really fun, but Pinsir is definitely the better Pokemon when both of them don't have access to Hidden Power. Although I think the jury is still out because both of these Pokemon are going to get access to Hidden Power in the next run, and that has the potential to change a lot. I genuinely think both of these bugs are going to go from 0 to hero. These first playthrough results are honestly disastrous when compared with other Pokemon in the tier list. Pinsir fits in ahead of Pokemon like Piloswine, Venomoth, and Sneasel, but behind Pokemon like Umbreon and Snorlax. That's in the C tier. On the other hand, Heracross's results are just behind Skarmory and just ahead of Sentret. Yes, the first stage regional rodent. Do remember though, these are unfair comparisons because all of these Pokemon that are currently ranked had access to Hidden Power. So I've kept you waiting long enough. Let's see how it affects these bugs. We're going to start with Heracross, and for it, I felt that Hidden Power Rock was the best solution. It's going to do 4 times damage to Red's Charizard, plus it's really good against all of Lance's team, and it also gives me neutral damage against the ghosts, and I won't have to rely on Struggle. I played this playthrough as a part of a community event that I'm hosting once every month for my Patreon and YouTube member supporters, where we all just sit down and do a playthrough in either Pokemon Yellow or Pokemon Crystal. I've started to pick more Pokemon that I need to prepare for Versus videos for this format, so I played my second Heracross run live with all of these people present. Dwundy, Rena, Smashmath, Snowy, Krukinari, and Dr. Slugma, the last of which provided major assistance in the optimization process for Heracross, which resulted in this third playthrough. While this run doesn't feature perfect play from me as a player, I think the route overall is extremely satisfying. Sometimes when you optimize a Pokemon, everything just lines up so perfectly and you don't feel like you have to make compromises. And that's that's how things work with Heracross when it has access to hidden power. Birdkeeper Abe inside the gym is a serious threat, so I do need to fight optional trainers in the early game. The first one is Youngster Joey, of course Youngster Mikey is mandatory, and finally I fight this bug catcher, and then I skip Dawn, of course he's useless. Inside Sprout Tower, I clear out the area for additional experience, leveling Heracross up over the damage rounding threshold at level 10. By the time I've reached Abe, my Heracross is level 11, so it's going to be able to 2-hit the Spearow, and it's never going to have problems here as a result. Although I do want you to note that the Peck does more than half to Heracross, so if I didn't have the damage range that I have now, or I didn't have a berry, this could be problematic. But I've prepared enough, and at level 11, I'm going to be able to 2-shot Falkner's Pidgeotto and take an easy win over the first gym leader. For context, fighting Falkner at level 11 is the first time that I get a 2-hit damage range that's guaranteed against the Pidgeotto, so this is why I wanted to do it. This might be slightly overly safe, and I could probably cut 2 trainers from the early game. Here's a screenshot showing RBY XP Rooter with 2 of the Sages in Sprout Tower removed. If I did this, then I would arrive at Falkner at level 10, and by doing that I would still have a 78.2% chance to knock out the Pidgeotto in 2 hits. Also, here are the damage ranges against Birdkeeper Abe at this level, so starting at level 9. Now his Spearow can sometimes one-shot me if it gets a critical hit, but it also has to roll the best possible damage range, so the overall percentage of this happening is 0.2%. In the end, I went for the safer strategy, and I don't think it's a huge time loss. On my way to Azalea Town, I fight a significant number of trainers. I'm not going to go through each one of them in detail, I'm just trying to get a lot of experience so that I'm prepared for the rival after Bugsy, who is, as you saw before, completely trivial for Heracross to defeat. That brings me to level 17 to face the rival, and here I'm going to rely on Fury Cutter. This is far faster than using Struggle, and while it is inconsistent, I'm using the Paralyzed Cure Berry in case the Ghastly inflicts the status condition with Lick. This ups my chance of getting through it using Fury Cutter, and from there I usually just sweep his team. And that's what happens once again. I beat the Ghastly and then crush his final 2 Pokemon, so no resets on the rival. For Whitney, I could have decided to level up one more time to get the outspeed on the Miltank, but I didn't feel this was necessary. Fury Cutter is more than capable of managing the Clefairy as well as the Miltank before Rollout stacks up too much damage. Okay, so I've been waiting for this for a long time to unleash Heracross, but we're not quite at hidden power yet, because once I clear the Sudowoodo, I'm going to go to the right and pick up the Rock Smash TM. Yes, I am going to use Rock Smash in this playthrough, even though it is base 20 power. Next, at the Lake of Rage, I pick up the Hidden Power TM and teach it in the place of Horn Attack. So my mid-game moveset is Headbutt, Fury Cutter, Horn Attack, and Rock Smash. Also, throughout the mid-game, I'm going to be running the Hard Stone, which increases the power of Hidden Power Rock by 10%. So that's a nice little boost to make this move just a tiny bit more effective. I do clear out the Lighthouse for additional experience before returning to Ecruteak City to face the rival in Burned Tower. The reason I did that is that now with Hidden Power Rock, I only have a 59% chance to knock out the rival's Haunter in a single hit. I liked doing the Lighthouse first to get level 25 over this damage rounding threshold so that it would have this chance damage range, and then against the Quilava, I'm going to have a 1-hit as well as for the Zubat. I have to use Rock Smash on the Magnemite. Yes, this is my best move when compared with everything else. I have a 9% chance to 1-hit, but I don't get it in this playthrough. And things get very sketchy here because I hit myself in confusion, but Heracross pulls through with 4 hit points. So, no resets so far. This is looking good. Let's go and crush Morty with Hidden Power Rock. Because of Heracross's high attack stat, it is able to 1-hit the first Ghastly in a guarantee, but the Haunter is only a 78.5% chance. Then I have to 2-hit the Gengar and I have a 56.9% chance on the final Haunter. These damage ranges aren't what I hoped they'd be, however they're much better than having to use Struggle. The main weakness Heracross has here is if it fails the damage range on the first Haunter, it gets put to sleep with Hypnosis, burns its Mint Berry, and then Gengar once again hits a Hypnosis. But Morty has a 45% chance to land that move, so him rolling it twice and hitting with both of them is quite unlikely. Plus I have a very favorable damage range against the Haunter. So in this playthrough I pull through with no resets. Chuck, Chuck is bad, so that's it. By the way, once I finished Morty, I was 18 minutes and 2 seconds ahead of my first playthrough, and I lost a little bit of time going to Chuck, so I'm only 17 minutes and 13 seconds ahead, but this is still a massive delta. Okay, so before we skip ahead to price, I want to rewind actually to just after I taught Heracross Hidden Power, because at the Lake of Rage, this guy appears on Wednesdays, and he gives you the Black Belt, which I am going to pick up in this playthrough to boost the power of fighting type moves by 10%. Jumping ahead to the battle against against Price, Rock Smash's power is not actually calculating correctly. So my overlay is not factoring in the Black Belt's 10% boost. Right now Rock Smash has a base power of 20. It then gets the same type attack bonus, which is a 1.5 times multiplier, bringing the effective power up to 30. Then after defeating Chuck, it gets a 12.5% boost, pushing its effective power up to 33 when rounded down. And finally, it should get another 10% boost on top of that, bringing it up to roughly 36, but we're not seeing that factored in, although the game is doing it. I have played so few fighting types in Generation 2 and used so few fighting type moves because they tend to be very inaccurate, and return is just so good. So I've never noticed this bug before, but I caught it today while doing this voiceover. I didn't even realize this while I was playing because I just thought Rock Smash's base power was so trash that it was gonna be this low anyway. So Price is obviously not an issue, and defeating him levels Heracross up to 35. This is key. To this point in the run, I have collected 3 rare candies, and I'm gonna use all of them before I face Jasmine. Okay, here's the damage ranges for this fight. At level 38 with Chuck's badge boost and the Black Belt, Rock Smash now has a 73.7% chance to one-hit both of her Magnemites. This way I can play around getting paralyzed at the beginning of the battle and then make it to the Steelix, which is second, and use Rock Smash against it. This can lower its defense, which I was hoping for, and it does. Also, Steelix inflicts massive damage with its first attack. This ends up being Heracross's first reset in the playthrough, but remember, Rock Smash has a 50% chance to lower the target's defense. So I can continue playing this fight, and if Rock Smash lowers defense on the first turn, I can continue using it. If it doesn't and I have a lot of health remaining, then I can go for counter and inflict massive damage back to the Steelix. This allows me to knock out the Steelix on my second attempt and then one-hit the Magnemite. Okay, 18 minutes and 5 seconds ahead of my former Jasmine split, this run is still going very well. The damage ranges against Petrol at the top of Radio Tower are actually quite specific. I need to be using the pink bow and have return. This gives me a one hit against all of the coughings, but just barely. My lowest damage range only does 100% damage. So level 40 feels like the perfect moment to fight him, and using the 3 rare candies before Jasmine was what allowed me to do this. It makes both that fight and this fight more consistent. Okay, I do just want to note that I just one-shot the rival's Haunter in the underground. That is so satisfying. Thank you, Hidden Power Rock. You are such a massive upgrade for Heracross. In the department store, I buy some critical vitamins, 6 Carbos. I am going to fight Red at a lower level in this playthrough, so I need to ensure that I'm going to move first against all of his team members, otherwise the reversal strategy just won't work. These Carbos are required to move first against the Espeon, as you will see later in the run. I crush Claire, and then I backtrack to the Whirl Islands to grab the inefficient rare candy here, as well as in Mount Mortar. I wish I could have skipped these with Heracross, but as a slow growth rate Pokemon, and with the need to outspeed Espeon, I have to pick them up to be the proper level for the final trainer of the run. Let's quickly go through the next battles from an experience perspective. I want you to watch Heracross's level. Defeating the rival brings me almost up to level 48. Then, once I take on Will, I am close to level 49. Defeating Koga brings Heracross midway through level 49, and then once Bruno's Machamp goes down, I get to level 50. Now this is the point where I don't have perfect play, or it's the moment where I realize I don't have perfect play. I open up my inventory because I wanted to use 4 rare candies to boost Heracross up to level 54 to learn Mega Horn, which is super effective against Karen's Pokemon. Unfortunately, I had forgotten 1 rare candy, so I only have 3, meaning I cannot get Mega Horn. This is really annoying because I have a 2-hit with return on the Umbreon, so I get hit by Sand Attack. If I had Mega Horn, here's the damage range. It has an 85% chance to knock out the Umbreon, so the only way I fail is if I miss. Things go wrong for me in this battle. The Gengar paralyzes me, and from there everything spirals out of control. So I have 1 reset to Karen because of my mistake missing the rare candy. It's pretty frustrating, but after that loss, I'm still 26 minutes and 44 seconds ahead of my first playthrough. I know in the top it says Heracross number 2 and then Heracross number 3. That's actually incorrect. I just filmed it with the wrong number there. So this is comparing Heracross 1 with Heracross 3. So this little guy is completely destroying its first playthrough results. And I have a way to completely destroy Lance as well. If I had learned Mega Horn, I would have put it in the place of return, and then I would have replaced Mega Horn right after Karen with Rest for Lance. This is just in case I fail one of the damage ranges or get taken to low health. Then I can use this move to heal, making the fight just a little bit safer. Although I don't want to heal if I can avoid it. And in this case, I just barely do, surviving with 13 hit points and a paralysis status condition. Because of Red, I backtrack to Violet City and pick up the rare candy I forgot. Oops. I can't skip this entirely because I do need it later on to outspeed Red's Espeon. Also, I did pick up another return TM, which are unlimited as long as you talk to the lady on Sunday. I teach this in the place of rest because I don't need to heal for Red. It's always satisfying when you don't need to stall in Generation 2. Heracross is so good against Blue. I go through this entire fight on green health, and now I'm 29 minutes and 6 seconds ahead of my former time. I grab the TM for Endure, I use 4 rare candies, and I'm just going to mention, as I use the third one and go to level 64, I want you to look at my speed. It's 183. That is 1 slower than the Espeon. So when I use the final rare candy going up to level 65, then I have 186. I get an asymmetrical boost to my speed here because of rounding. Now that I'm faster than all of Red's Pokemon, this is very simple. I can one-hit the Pikachu using Return. Then against the Venusaur, I knock it out over 3 turns using Return. By the way, it's better if it goes for Sunny Day here. That just improves Charizard's damage and ensures that I'm going to be taken down to 1 hit point. Once the Fiery Lizard comes out, I use Endure once, survive the Flamethrower hit, and use Hidden Power Rock to finish it off. From there, reversal on everything, even the Espeon. Sometimes there's people who are skeptical of my methods and my damage ranges, and I think that that's fair. If I was watching one of these videos, I'd also be wondering if the person had put in the work. So here are the damage ranges at level 65 against Red. You can see that I have a guarantee against the Pikachu, a guaranteed 3-hit against the Venusaur that can be slightly sped up if I get critical hits. I have a 12.8% chance to 2-hit. Charizard is always a 1-hit with Hidden Power Rock, although the damage range might not be as dominant as you would think. Only 110 to 130% damage with a regular hit. From there, I have guaranteed 1-hits on the Espeon, the Snorlax, and the Blastoise. Espeon, though, is just barely a 1-hit at level 65, 103% to 103% damage. Yes, Reversal is not subject to the same damage randomization that other moves are, so it always does a fixed amount to the Pokemon, making it very consistent. Because of this mechanic, level 64 will not work for Heracross. This brings the damage it does to Espeon down to 97%, meaning it's always going to 2-hit. And in Generation 2, the AI chooses which moves it's going to use based on damage rolls. Espeon will just see that it gets a KO with Psychic and use this move every time. Also, at level 64, like I said before, I am underspeeding the Espeon, so it'll just move first either way. Level 65 feels like the perfect level for Heracross to beat Generation 2. And Hidden Power Rock perfectly synergizes with it, making the Charizard easier so that I don't have to rely on Headbutt. All said and done, Heracross clocks in with a final time of 1 hour, 14 minutes, and 41 seconds, with 2 resets, 0 blackouts at level 66, with a game time of 4 hours and 48 minutes. This result is 8 minutes and 33 seconds faster than my second playthrough, and 33 minutes and 36 seconds faster than my first run. I think it's clear that this beetle went all the way from 0 under a rock to Hercules beetle by the end. Actually, this isn't the most accurate metaphor because Mega Heracross is actually based on the Hercules beetle, whereas regular Heracross is based on a rhinoceros beetle. I once thought it was based on a stag beetle, but no, that's Pinsir, so let's move on to it. I don't know that you're all ready for this. I know I wasn't. I thought playing Pinsir was not going to be very fun. I knew that Swords Dance was good and it would get a decent time, but I thought the slow growth rate and its typing would just not perform particularly well. I was so incredibly wrong. I actually just got chills right now saying that because it is so satisfying to be so wrong about a Pokemon. Let's watch Pinsir completely crush Pokemon Crystal in its third playthrough. I fight a single Sage inside Sprout Tower to up my damage ranges just a little bit against Birdkeeper Abe. At level 7, Pinsir has a guaranteed 3-hit against the Spearow, and since I'm holding a berry, I will survive. By the time I reach Falkner, I'm level 8, and I'm going to be level 9 for the Pidgeotto. Vice Grip has a 95.6% chance to 2-hit the Pidgey, and a 68.3% chance to 3-hit the Pidgeotto. As you can see here, I knock out the Pidgeotto with 4 hits, and I am left with 7 hit points at the end of the battle. The Pidgey, if it attacks me, is going to do between 3 and 4% damage. So even if I fail the 2-hit range against the Pidgey, and I fail the 3-hit range against the Pidgeotto, Pinsir is still going to win. Okay, time for what is likely the longest stretch of additional training that Pinsir is going to do throughout this entire playthrough. I fight this guy, this girl, this guy, Fisher Ralph, who now has Channel Art, and then this Birdkeeper. Inside the cave, I fight the Fire Breather, the Pokemaniac, and the final Fire Breather. Inside Bugsy's gym, I clear out all of the trainers, and then go up against the second gym leader, which I crush. Rival time. Like with Heracross, I'm going to use Fury Cutter here. It does give me a first attempt victory, although it's not nearly as dominant, mostly just because this fight is pure luck for both of these Pokemon. I use Fury Cutter to defeat Whitney, and now in the mid-game, we're going to head over to the Lake of Rage, doing some additional training on the way. This guy right-hand side Mount Mortar has 2 of the Nidos who's really quick to knock out, so I like to grab this experience when I can. I also fight the guy with Nidoking by the lake because he's also good experience yields. Okay, Hidden Power, it's going to be a ground type move for Pinsir. This does affect my DVs in a negative way. I have 7 HP and 12 attack. But Pinsir is an exceptional beast, so it does not need those extra stats. I clear out the Kimono girls, as well as all the trainers in the lighthouse before backtracking to Akritique City. I didn't need to do this for damage ranges against the rival. I am going to one-hit every one of his Pokemon using Hidden Power Ground and then Headbutt on the Zubat. All this training has brought me to level 27 for Morty, and it seems like a little bit of overkill, but it's just enough to guarantee the one-shot against the Gengar. It has exactly 69 HP, nice, and Hidden Power Ground is going to do 71 damage with its minimum damage roll. Chuck, Price, then 3 rare candies, teaching submission along the way, and then I face Jasmine. First attempt victory for Pinsir here, so it is off towards the league. We're just gonna skip Claire, she's completely irrelevant. The rival is a good opportunity for me to demonstrate something with Swords Dance. When using Pinsir, its attack stat is so fantastic that I only need to set up once in most circumstances to sweep an entire team's worth of Pokemon. Minimizing the number of turns that I have setting up really improves the performance of Pokemon like Pinsir, because then I can get hit by less moves and less status conditions. In some cases, I want to prepare for these though, like against Will. I'm holding the Bitterberry so that I can set up once with Swords Dance, then if the Xatu uses Confuse Ray, I don't have to worry about it. I resume holding the Pink Bow for Koga because Return is my primary damage dealing move. I sweep his team. This one requires full setup so that I knock out the Fortress in one hit. It doesn't really matter, like it's not a good Pokemon. Bruno, he feels similar to his Generation 1 equivalent in this case, and I'm not going to heal before Karen to ensure that I have lower health, hoping that she will use less sand attacks on me. She doesn't though. Then, because of accuracy, the Houndoom knocks Pinsir out, giving it its first reset. Unfortunately for me, this happens a total of 2 times, which slows Pinsir down, although look at the clock, right now it is getting an outstanding time anyway. This is one of those blemishes on a run that I can't really control for. I went into the battle with less than full health, so the Umbreon has a reduced chance of using Sand Attack, but I can't reduce its chance any more than this, and there's no held item I can use to restore my accuracy once it gets dropped. So I just have to chance things and hope that I knock the Houndoom out. It's frustrating when things don't work out in the final playthroughs of these videos, and if you're annoyed by it, believe me, it frustrates me even more. Okay Lance, for this one I need 2 turns of setup. If I go with only 1, then Aerodactyl is not going to be a one-hit, but if I take 2, then I one-hit everything from that point on. Jumping ahead to blue, let's talk about the setup here. I do 2 turns of setup, and that's all I need to one-shot the Rhydon using Hidden Power Ground. This move continues to be useful all the way into Kanto, which is very rarely the case. For most Pokemon, once you've used Hidden Power Ice to clear, say, Erica or maybe Brock in some really niche scenarios, it stops being useful entirely because its base power is just too low. But with Pinsir, it still has utility. Now, before the fight against Red, I have arrived here and I have a total of 6 rare candies because I've had to use less than I did with Heracross early on. I can go from level 59 all the way up to level 65, which gives me exactly 185 speed. This is incredibly important for Pinsir. So here's how the final fight of the run is going to go. Return or Hidden Power Ground against the Pikachu, they both work. Note that I still have Submission on my moveset. This is because Pinsir only needs 2 moves. Return and Swords Dance. It is that good. Red sends in Venusaur second, and here I'm just gonna set up with Swords Dance to get +6. Notably, I am taking significant damage from Solar Beam if the Venusaur chooses to go for Sunny Day, which it did here. I just barely get to +6. If I had had 1 more turn of setup using a move like Sharpen, then I would have had to use a move like Rest to heal my health, but Pinsir doesn't need that because it's able to survive. Now the speed stat is incredibly important because I don't have enough health to survive a single hit from any other Pokemon on his team. But since I'm outspeeding, I sweep everything with Return, and Pinsir clocks in with what was almost a new personal best. Actually, I played this run before my final Furret playthrough, so at the time it was my personal best. 1 hour, 9 minutes and 18 seconds with 2 resets at level 66, with a game time of 4 hours and 29 minutes. Okay, so before we bring up the tier list, I want to mention one more damage range against Red. Initially, I thought that I needed to get to +6 to knock out all of his Pokemon, but Pinsir doesn't actually need that. Instead, with only 2 uses of Swords Dance at +4, it's going to one-hit everything, so it's even more dominant than I originally realized. This thing is quite frankly excellent. Okay, so now let's bring up the tier list. As things currently stand, normal types are dominant. For its time of 1 hour 8 minutes and 38 seconds, has not been eclipsed today, but Pinsir gave it a serious run for its money. Today, surprising me and hopefully many of you, Pinsir gets the second place spot overall, beating out Granbull's time of 1 hour 9 minutes and 33 seconds. Although I think this normal type, when I play it again, will do slightly better than Pinsir, just because it had 8 resets in its final playthrough, and it still got this incredible time. Unfortunately for Heracross fans, it didn't perform quite as well, but it still got a very good result. It's 2 seconds slower than Feraligatr and 16 seconds faster than Lugia. Okay, let's quickly go through some graphs and graphics. Here is the run summary for my final playthroughs with both Heracross and Pinsir, just in case you want to go and recreate these runs yourself. I think there's room to shave a little bit of time moving some training out of the early game for Pinsir into the later stages of the game, but I really do think that 185 speed is required to make Red significantly easier. I love that both of these Pokemon did not need Curse. That is really refreshing, and I highly recommend playing both of them, but allow yourself to use Hidden Power. If you don't, they're not fun, don't play them, play something else. Here's a timeline comparison of my 3 Pinsir playthroughs. You can see that between the first run and then the follow-up runs, there was a major time reduction because of Hidden Power, and then between the second and third run, there was only a minor time improvement. Putting all the results side by side in the timeline, you can see that a similar thing played out for Heracross. Although I got a major time reduction between the second playthrough and the third playthrough by optimizing my red strategy a little bit, as well as everything else throughout the mid-game. Today though, the victor of course is Pinsir, because as you can see here, both its second and third playthrough were faster than Heracross's third run. I think if I ran these two 100 times each, Pinsir would come out the victor almost in every attempt, if not in every single one. It is so fantastic. Alright, so we've done 2 bug types now, and both of them got S tier results. These were both fantastic performances in my mind. What about some other bugs? Maybe Scyther and Scissor. The reason I wanted to pair these two together is previously I did Scissor versus Steelix, and I wanted to break those two up and put them in different videos. Also, if you didn't know, Scyther and Scissor both have the same base stat total, even though Scissor is an evolution. Really, you just get the Steel typing, which is better. However, that also gives you a 4 times weakness to Fire type moves, and the rival is going to be picking Quilava. So, tune in next week when I try out those 2 Pokemon in Crystal. Thank you so much to everyone who supports me on Patreon or through YouTube memberships. It really does mean the world to me and allow me to make these videos at this high of quality. If you have been on the fence about supporting me in the past, I have been posting way more exclusive content, a bunch of Twitch archives from streams that I'm doing over there. I'm trying out a bunch of different races with Steve M Plays and Speedrunner. They are really fun backports in Pokemon Crystal, and I think those might interest you. You also might want to get a sense of what software we're developing behind the scenes, and I'm trying to give weekly updates on all of that. Plus, when I do versus videos like this, I try to go through the Pokemon, at least one of them, in an analysis style video where we watch the entire unbroken final playthrough and I discuss details of strategy. It's always a little bit more in-depth than I can make these fully produced videos, otherwise they would all be like 5 hours long, and that's just way too much for YouTube as a platform. So I hope you consider joining. Thank you so much. If you have made it this far, you are incredible. I will see you in my next video.